It never rains and then it pours. Even eBay can throw up some pleasant surprises every now and then, and that's what happened to me last week when I bought one computer, and it was a bit like going to the supermarket for a special offer, but in this case it was buy one get three free. I've no idea what's in these three other random machines that the guy gave me, so that's what we're going to look at in this video. So this all started on eBay when I saw a machine that looked interesting, and it was a local collection, which is good because it means the bidding would be less frantic and it would only be local people who are interested. So I waited and watched and got it for its opening bid price, which wasn't very much money at all. I did notice the guy had another few machines on eBay, but I wasn't really interested in them. I just read the headlines and didn't look into them. But when I arrived, the three of them were lying on the floor. Nobody had bid for them, so he said, take them. The machine second from the left, the plain beige box, is the one that I spent money on. I think it's an interesting machine. I'm not going to look at that in this video because I think it's worth a video of its own, hopefully. But we'll look at these other three machines and see if there's anything interesting in them. So the first machine's one of those ones that's got some iMac-inspired blue plastic on it, so that smells of turn of the millennium, Pentium 4 maybe. It's got a Pentium 3 sticker on the front, so who knows? Let's have a look. Okay, on the front panel, at the top there's what looks like a generic crappy 52-speed CD-ROM drive. And below that there's a Super Multi from LG, which I don't know what that is. I guess maybe a DVD burner, I'm not sure. A couple of empty 5 1/4 drive bays below that. Then a 1 1/4 inch floppy, another empty drive bay, and that's pretty much it for the front. Just a power button and a reset. Nothing exciting on the back, just the usual power supply, an I/O panel with PS2s for mouse, keyboard, a printer port, a serial port, a games port, some USB ports, Ethernet and sound. No expansion cards, which is a bit disappointing. And this case has no sides, which means the case is probably going to be unusable, so probably need to scrap that. So really this machine's going to be all about harvesting stuff potentially for other builds, I think. You may have also noticed that this case is just a teeny little bit bent. It looks like somebody's been beating it with a sledgehammer, so yeah, definitely for the scrap heap. Now, it doesn't have a hard drive in this machine, but we should still be able to post it and see if the bits and pieces are working. And yes, there it goes. So that looks cool, and it's a Duron. So I guess this is a Socket A motherboard, 1.3 gigahertz, and slightly strange RAM memory check there. So I guess that's maybe 512 megabytes. So it's worth salvaging. Let's dig in and take the thing apart, see what we've got. Let's get rid of these ribbon cables first. Get the drives out. And one good thing about this case is it has a motherboard tray, so it should be easy to get that out as well. First thing out the box is a TIAC floppy disk drive, so that's quite handy. Can never have too many floppy drives, and it's a decent manufacturer as well, which is good. And that crappy generic CD drive turns out to be made by Lighton, so I guess that's a half decent one as well, so could probably reuse that. And yeah, the LG drive was indeed a Super Multi DVD rewriter. Oh, might come in handy at some point. And lastly, get the power supply out, and that is Sunmi switching power supply, so I guess that's a 350 watt power supply. Can never have too many ATX power supplies. So I'm quite glad to have another Socket A board in my collection. I did a build video a little while ago where I built a Socket A system around a AMD Duron processor, and I was planning to do a bit of overclocking on that and then upgrade it to an Athlon Thunderbird and compare it with the overclocking on that. But the motherboard I had at the time didn't really do overclocking, so that sort of put an end to that. I wish this board had arrived earlier, because I did go out and buy a board on eBay especially for that project, but it looks like this, which is an ASRock K7 VM2, is a reasonable overclocker, so I could have used this board for that project, but now I've got two. So at some point in the future I'll probably come back to this board and we'll have a look at that when we do some overclocking on that Athlon system. Yeah, this board, living in its case with no sides, was exposed to all the shit and crap that nature could throw at it, and it looks like it needs a good clean. It's filthy. It's covered in shit. So we'll give it the usual. I wish I had a sink big enough to give these things a proper wash, but my kitchen sink is a funny shape and very awkward for cleaning motherboards, so I'm just going to do what I usually do, which is give it a brush to get rid of the loose crap and a bit of a wipe with some IPA. The Duron 1300, it's got a lot of caked in thermal paste around the back of the die there. That's from one of those crappy thermal pads that you get on the back of the heatsink. So I couldn't get it totally clean, but it'll do for now. And then we've got our PC 2700 stick of 512 megabytes. There we have it. Mystery Machine 1 has been cannibalized into a bunch of useful parts. So there's some stuff here that will probably get reused in a Socket A build at some point. On to the next machine. Now this one immediately looks a little bit more interesting, not least the AMD K6 sticker on the front. But at the top, there's one of those creative drives that has that funky, cool coloured logo on the front. And I've always kind of wanted one of those, but never had one. So this is, I guess that's a 6-speed DVD-ROM. So yeah, that's a nice little drive. And that badge is actually for a K6-2. So I'm not sure if that's what's in here. Nothing else to report on this case. There's a 1.4 inch floppy and a start button, a reset button, and a couple of LEDs. I really like the look and feel of this case at the front, but unfortunately the sides are missing on this one as well, so it's probably going to be unusable. Back's a bit more interesting on this one. We've got a power supply, we've got a very basic I/O panel, just a keyboard and mouse port, a couple of USBs, parallel to serial, no graphics or anything, no sound, and we've got a card, a graphics card. Can't wait to see what that is. No hard drive here again, but does it boot? And yes, it does. Wow, what's that? PhoenixNet. That's funky. We'll have to check it out. And there, not a K6, but a Pentium 2 at 350 megahertz and 256 megabytes of RAM. Definitely a slightly more interesting machine than the last one. So the card is a Rage 128 Pro by ATI, and this is an interesting card because a lot of ATI kind of took second place to just about everybody up to this point possibly, but the 128 Pro is a half decent card from what I know about it. I have another one of these, but it's a sort of basic OEM model. I think this one's kind of similar to the one that ATI itself released, and it has the theatre chip on it, which gives you a whole raft of graphics options. I think you can run things like a TV as a second monitor. You can capture stuff over S-Video. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's got DVD hardware acceleration on it, so that on older machines, possibly like this Pentium 2, you get smooth DVD playback. I think this is going to be a fun card to have a mess around with. So get all of the cables out, and this one has a motherboard tray as well, which is cool, so it makes it easy to take apart. So this time we've got a floppy inch drive from Alps Electric Co. So that's cool. Then our cool creative DVD-ROM, model number DVD6240E. Interesting motherboard. And this time we have a switching power supply, 350 watt again. So I'm pretty happy with this one. I think this is probably the best thing out of the stash of free computers so far. I mean, not only is it a super interesting board to have a slot 1 and a socket 370 on it, but this one also has the VIA Apollo Pro 133 chipset, which I believe is compatible with Tualatin Pentium 3s, or at least can be upgraded with a BIOS upgrade to do so. Now this board as well, couldn't find any information on it. At least not as the BN693A, and I believe that was by a company called Bono, not the U2 singer. But it does seem that this board was simply a rebadged Jetway board, and The manual for that is just about everywhere, so I think it's a Jetway 993AS, which I've downloaded, so I've got all the jumper settings and everything, so yeah, cool find. So my instinct is to say that this is probably going to become the basis of a fast Pentium 3 duality build, hopefully. But I have also read in the past some crazy things about people talking about populating both sockets on these kind of boards, and then there's some kind of soft switch or jumper that you can potentially switch between the two, so you could potentially flick between this Pentium 2 350 and a Pentium 3 1 point whatever gigahertz. Don't know how feasible that is, but it'll be interesting to look into. Well, if I paid what I paid for the other machine that I actually wanted, I would have been pleased with this. So yeah, very happy to have picked this one up for nothing. So the next machine, I kind of left this one to last because I just don't like the look of this. It's horrible. It is another one of those horrible turn of the millennium blue looking things. So going from top to bottom, there's a CD rewriter on there, 8 times, 4 times speed, 3 5 1/4 drive bays. Or blank, I don't think there's a hard drive in this either. A black floppy disk drive. And we've got power and reset buttons, and then one of those horrible little trapdoors that they used to put on at this time with the USB ports hiding behind them. So this thing does have sides, but we'll spin it around and take a look at the back. So we've got a power supply and what feels like a later I/O panel. So we've got our PS2s for mouse and keyboard, parallel, serial, 4 USBs, networking, joystick and sound. And there's a graphics card in there as well. Okay, let's fire it up and see if she posts. An Athlon XP 1800 plus. So yeah, this is kind of beyond the period that I am interested in and would consider retro. So once you get into the Windows XP, I mean I do want a Windows XP machine, which I don't. I've got a couple, but I haven't really got my ideal Windows XP gaming machine yet, so maybe this might be the basis of it, you never know. I'm not quite sure what memory value that's supposed to be, but I'm guessing it's 328 megabyte sticks. So same old for this machine. I kind of decided I don't want to use this case. I really don't like it at all. So again, I'm just going to strip this machine down and stick it into my stack of parts for future builds. Right, the cables are out the way, so let's have a look at this graphics card. Is it anything interesting? Not really. The GeForce FX 5200, so there were billions of these flying around. They were just a very cheap, nasty OEM card at the time. I mean, there's potential in a retro build to get some really good performance out of these if you're not too bothered about being period correct. I like being period correct, so it's just a spare graphics card, but I probably won't use it for anything. And the floppy disk is from Acer, so another one to add to the pile of spares. And that CD writer is a CD writer with no name. Who knows who made this? And top it all off with a 300 watt power supply from GeneTech. The innards of this thing weren't filthy, but could definitely do with a wipe down. So the motherboard here is quite interesting because in the Duron that we looked at earlier, we had that ASRock K7 VM2 board, which I was talking about as maybe using as the basis for my Athlon Thunderbird build. But here, this is an even later version. So these are all socket 462 boards, and socket 462 and socket A are the same thing. So this board here is a much later revision, and it has AGP8 and all sorts of extra memory configurations, and it's a much more capable board than even the one that was on the Duron that we looked at earlier. So this board, despite the fact that I don't particularly like this system, might be the best of all of the ones that I've got for making that overclocked Thunderbird build. So in this free haul, I've actually doubled the number of socket A boards that I possess, which is cool. So I'd never really thought about that this might yield me the best motherboard for my Athlon overclocking project, so yeah, I'm pleased with that as well. So I think I'll call it a day for this video, having looked at those 3 surprise extras that I got when I bought that last PC on eBay. And of course that last PC is the main event, and there'll be a video coming up very shortly because I think that that machine warrants a video of its own. I know it's a complete system and there's some interesting stuff in there. But I'm pleased with what I've got here, despite the fact that 2 of the cases were broken and one of them was horrible. I'm going to salvage them and it'll give me a load of drive bay blanks and fans and stuff like that. From the things that came out of the machines themselves, I'm particularly excited about that motherboard with the socket 370 and the slot 1 on the same board. Looking forward to doing something exciting with that, hopefully getting that Tualatin fast Pentium 3 build done at some point in the future. I suddenly have lots of socket A boards to complete my Duron stroke Athlon Thunderbird overclocking project. I'm really pleased with that creative DVD ROM drive. I think it's a lovely little thing that'll definitely be going into a build soon. And also the ATI Rage 128 Pro. I think that's going to be an interesting card to have a bit of a play around with. So on top of that, a whole bunch of memory modules and drives to add to the store of bits and pieces. So all in all, really pleased with it. And I'll be getting back to looking at that other machine sometime very soon. So in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed exploring these freebie machines with me. If you did, it'd be great if you consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing or leaving a comment below, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.